Hey everyone, welcome back. So I have a special guest with me today. It's EvanNova95. Some of you may know him. He is rather popular on YouTube for doing Star Wars versus videos, and also just interesting little like you just released a video about I forget his name, but the Jedi, the unsung hero.
The story of Helga Adventor.
Yes, I cannot pronounce that name.
Good afternoon, everybody.
But I have been a fan of your videos for some time, and it occurred to me, since I have to do a bunch of leveling up in this anyway, a good way to do this would be, while we're leveling up, to have co-hosts who are very familiar with the Star Wars universe and just chat all things Star Wars to keep you guys entertained while I do the rather admittedly boring parts of this game. So, so hello, and thank you, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And my first goal here is to do a couple of these space missions. Now, I want to make sure it's clear to everyone that this is out of roleplay. I thought about it long and hard, and I decided that Ven wouldn't really participate in these space battles because it's not really following what he wants as a goal in the universe. His whole idea is, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but his whole idea is he wants to prevent war. Even though he is technically an Imperial agent, Empire, Republic don't really mean much to him. His entire goal is to avoid war. And he's with the Empire simply because he feels that's his best chance of averting war, is by working for them. So he probably wouldn't, in a roleplay sense, participate in these because it kind of goes against his whole goal. But I need to level up.
Don't we all?
It's really good XP, so... just letting everyone know this is out of roleplay. I thought about doing it as part of the story, but I couldn't justify it from a roleplay standpoint. I guess he would adopt the idea of, well, if war is coming, I'm going to end it as fast as possible. But the concept or the story behind many of these space raids are not, a war is here, let's stop it. It's more like, hey, the Republic's pushing us, let's teach them a lesson. So, yeah. But hey, it's really, really good experience, so. Excellent. So, my thinking was, first I had a question. How come no one does versus videos for, oh gosh, why is her name escaping me? The Jedi Master that was in all of the, she's the Jedi Grandmaster of Swtor.
Satele Shan?
Satele, yeah, how come no one does it versus videos for her? And I just died, wow.
Well, I think... part of the reason is, well, for starters, there's not an insane amount of information on her.
True.
And there are some factors that you kind of have to guess with. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, I don't consider her all that, popular of a character. And, a lot of these versus things are done simply, either by suggestion or just by overall character appeal. But I'm not going to spoil anything, but, you might want to look out in the future for some other stuff I might have planned.
Oh, awesome. Well,
I'm not going to say names, but,
my thinking
she might pop up.
It might be maybe there's more information on him, but see, because like in the and I admittedly I haven't read many of the extended universe books pre-Republic, but a lot of people do stuff on Darth Malgus, which in most of the videos it's her versus Darth Malgus. So I was wondering why there's lots for Darth Malgus, but not lots for her.
Well, I mean, I think it's all, when it really comes down to it, it has to do with popularity and...
so he's a badass, so...
pretty much. Like, I know there's a lot more to it than that, but there is, when you strip it all down, that's what it really comes to. And also, there are some things stated for him that aren't stated for her, and he does have more stories, so there's more to work with.
I was thinking, yeah, maybe there was a book for him or something.
There was.
Oh, okay. See, that makes perfect sense. Because I always remember, I was watching a few of the videos on that kind of thing, and I'm like, where are they getting all this information on him? It's like, I'm watching him, and I know what you can see from him, but I didn't know he had all this information. Oh, yeah, so I guess I just kind of assumed that Satele had the same kind of information, but...
yeah, she has a few, comic book appearances, but nothing quite as solid as Malgus has, so... when you have more to work with, it makes for a more entertaining video.
No, that's absolutely true.
There are some characters, I love Helga Adventor, as you could probably tell by the video I recently made, but I would never do a versus with him because there's, abysmal amount as far as combative application for him. Right. So it just wouldn't make an entertaining video, I can assume things, but assumption isn't really the best thing to go off of, especially if you're having a concrete decision.
So how does, okay, you'd probably be a really good person to ask, because it's always very confusing with Star Wars. How exactly does the canon work? Are all the,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Isn't it? Like, are all the extended universe things like the Yuzhong Vong War and, the Admiral Thrawn, are those considered, like, we can assume that is canon, that did happen?
Yes. When it really comes to canon, a lot of people have their own, personal opinions on how they like Star Wars and how they like to view things. Me personally, there are some stories that you can get away with saying they're not canon, but I think there are some events that you just can't ignore. Like you said, the Yuzhong Vong War and the Thrawn, I consider those to be very, galaxy-shifting events. And, a lot of character development is there, and they do fit in the timeline of the movies very well. Whereas something like, maybe a little comedic skit or a little obscure comic book that came out about this really obscure character, that could be argued, but some things just can't be argued. And also, everyone has their own opinion on what's canon, because some stuff does contradict and some stuff doesn't.
Right.
And, with such a big universe like this, you could, continuity is just a very difficult thing to manage, especially with something on this big of a scale. So there's bound to be slip-ups wherever you go. And it really just, like I said, it really just all comes down to personal taste. You may dislike something and consider it not canon, but then another person may like it and does consider it canon. So it's just a very fluid thing, and that's really how it all works.
I'm usually not that bad at this space mission. Well, don't they have like some sort of process like LucasArts will approve novels?
Yes.
So it's pretty much like if they approve a novel, you can consider them saying, yes, this is part of the universe, right?
For the most part, yes, but they also have the authority to approve something that contradicts something else. Like, did you watch the Clone Wars TV series?
Actually, believe it or not, I did not for the longest time because I thought it was just a kid's show. I just recently started watching it. I'm very, very impressed with it, actually.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I actually consider, the later seasons, 3, 4, 5, to be very, very well written.
I'm actually only
mature, actually, when you think about it.
I'm only in season 2, believe it or not, and I'm still very, very impressed. I'm very impressed with not only how mature it is, like Landing Point Rain, and those battles are really intense.
Oh yeah, I mean and trust me, as the seasons progress, it just gets better and better. Like animation gets better, story gets better.
Yeah, but I'm also,
I think a lot of people don't give it a lot of credit.
No, and they should.
For all the things that it did wrong, I think it does just as many things right, because there are some arcs in there that I honestly would consider like. Season 3, I'm not going to spoil it for you, at least I would prefer not to.
No.
Called the Mortis arc, and I personally consider that up there with some of the, best Star Wars just stories ever. And I just think it's amazing when you look at it in the terms of the grand scale and everything. And I think a lot of people dismiss it because, yeah, it is quote unquote a kids show, but there have been a lot of kids shows over the years that have really push the bar on maturity. I mean, you look at things like, like Batman the Animated Series or Justice League.
Yes.
I mean, would you consider those kid shows?
And I really have trouble just calling it a straight up kids show when it deals with so many things. I mean, there was one in season 2 there where it dealt with straight up a Mandalorian warrior committing suicide, and they didn't shy away from it at all.
Oh yeah,
they didn't just hint. They didn't just hint that yes, they showed him land and speak his last words, and I was like, good lord.
Yeah.
But even that aside, I'm impressed with how they go into, it's not just all the action, even though the action is really high quality. They go into the clones and how the clones are individualized and have their own personalities, and they aren't just machines, and and I love how they do that. And to me, the writing is good enough that even the little fun stories, like when Ahsoka loses her lightsaber, it was entertaining to watch.
I actually kind of like that episode.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
yeah.
I thought it was really fun. I like Ahsoka. At first, I was like, really? I mean, Ahsoka, they're gonna this just for the kids show, but I like her character, and I haven't seen past season 2, but the whole fact that that sooner or later she's not in the 3rd movie makes the whole thing kind of tragic. Like, you don't know I guess you might. I don't.
I do.
I don't know what's gonna happen to her, but she's obviously something, which makes the whole thing just kind of like, ooh.
You'll see.
But yeah, I'm like I said, I just recently found that show and I've been watching it a lot, but I'm very, very impressed with it. I also like Cad Bane. One of the things I've always been interested in is knowing that there are people in the galaxy that are good enough, trained enough, smart enough, whatever, that they can go toe-to-toe with Jedi. Even though, in Cad Bane's case, it's just he outsmarts them all the time. But I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing that Jedi are not the end-all, be-all.
Definitely. There's been a lot of characters like that over the years.
I was actually, I have a mental exercise for you.
Okay.
And it might be something that, I don't know, you may have thought about it or not, but I'm curious. Let's say you can take a character who is very highly trained. A perfect example would be, let's say, the Imperial agents from Swtor. They give you the impression that they can stand up to Jedi. Though I'm not really sure realistically. But let's say an Imperial agent is well trained and they had to go up against someone, say, like Darth Malgus. Do you think it's possible? Now, obviously you can say, well, of course you can snipe them, you can catch them by surprise, but I mean going toe-to-toe with someone like Darth Malgus, is that a possibility? It just seems not very realistic.
Do you mean just in that situation, or overall context, if somebody is well trained, can they stand up to a Force user?
Yeah, overall, like, assuming it's kind of a straight-up face-to-face fight, because obviously you can always catch him by surprise, poison him, or whatever. But let's say you could plan for it. So you could know, okay, I'm going up against someone, I'm going to bring this, and this, and I'm going to be prepared, but it is a straight-up face-to-face fight.
Well, I do think it's entirely possible for a trained being to defeat a Force user, but in certain cases, it does come down to chance in a lot of ways. It depends how skilled the Force user himself is, what the circumstances are, what their location is. Is it a battle to the death, or is it just till knockout? There's a lot of factors that play into this, because I do think it's entirely possible for some non-Force related beings to beat Force users, but there are a lot of factors that play into it, because even if you look at certain victories that non-Force users have had over Jedi or Sith, a lot of those situations have either been by surprise or just by sheer luck.
Right.
Like, Boba Fett, would he have killed Luke Skywalker if Han Solo didn't hit his jetpack? I don't know, but yeah. Or something like what's another good example?
Or Jango Fett, if his jetpack hadn't have been.
Yeah, would he have been able to take Mace Windu? There's so many factors. I mean, it depends really on who the person is, because with Jedi and Sith and Force users, there's so many possibilities, because everyone is different, and just the way you can't really generalize Jedi and you can't really generalize Sith, because there's so many characters. They all have their different skills. They all have their different factors. They all have their different character. It's a very difficult thing to gauge in an overall sense. If you take a specific character, then it's easier to gauge. But in an overall sense, I have to say it is possible, but there are a lot of factors.
That does make sense. I wish that was something that books would explore a lot more, because you do see hints of it. You do see things like Cad Bane, or Jango Fett was a good one. I mean, he actually went toe-to-toe with Obi-Wan for a while. So you can see that, but, excuse me, and I'm sure there are methods to combat them. Like, I'm sure there's got to be some sort of defense for Force lightning other than a lightsaber.
There is.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's got to be, and I think that would be a really fascinating thing to explore in a Star Wars story. They just don't do it enough. It seems like, and I guess part of it is because of popularity, but, like, Sith and Jedi are the bomb,
Yeah.
So it's really interesting and fun when you see people like Cad Bane or Jango Fett actually stand up to them. I wish it would happen more often.
Definitely paints an interesting picture.
But one thing I always thought was not really explored was the idea that that Jedi aren't really faster than the normal person. It's just that they can use the ability to predict the future to a limited degree to block laser bolts. Basically, if I understand it correctly, it's not so much that they're, at least in that instance, it's not so much that they're faster, but that they know where it's going to be, so they can place their saber where it needs to be, kind of thing.
Actually, it's actually Force augmented speed.
Oh, is it?
Like, Force speed is a very common, very viable skill, and it is how Jedi accomplish feats like that. It's even shown clearly in the movies. Like in that scene in the Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, the droidekas are about to blast
right,
them,
and they
if
just
you
run
look,
away.
they just run like super quick, and force speed is a viable tactic. Now you can use seeing the future to predict things like that, but not every Jedi is a telepath. But pretty much every Jedi has force augmented speed. It's just such a basic skill.
I see.
So it is skill. It's not just predicting the future.
Okay, I was a little unclear on that. It does make more sense though.
Yeah, it's a basic skill.
Because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, the ability to predict laser bolts would be great, but if your body still can't keep up with it, I don't know how useful that would be.
Yeah, it is. Your body can't. Their bodies can keep up with it pretty easily. Like deflecting blaster bolts is like a Padawan training 101.
Right. I do have to ask now that I have you here. All right, in the cinematic for Swtor, the battle for Alderaan, where she blocks his lightsaber with her bare hand.
Yes.
Is that a technique?
Yes.
Or is that just movie?
No, it is a technique.
What is that? I've never seen that before. I was like, wait, what?
It's called Tutaminis, and what it is it's basically it's a combination of a force shield and force energy redirection, and it basically just kind of absorbs the power from a lightsaber. Now, they're similar to how remember how Yoda was able to deflect Dooku's lightning with his bare hands?
Right.
Same principle, exact same ability, and Tutaminis is used to deflect blaster bolts. It's used to deflect debris. Basically, Tutaminis is it's basically a block, and it can deflect lightsabers. But the way it works is, Tutaminis can only be sustained as long as the user is able to sustain the energy, because lightsabers have more intensity than, say, blaster bolts or darts.
Right.
So you can't only the most skilled Tutaminis users can block lightsabers or force lightning.
I see. So A, she was a badass, and B, it was a use of last resort.
It was a viable skill that I would not put past a Jedi Grandmaster.
Okay.
Now, as far as Tutaminis goes, the thing that pushes Tutaminis to its limit, though, is actually force lightning. Blocking force lightning takes the most concentration, most power, pretty much everything having to do with Tutaminis. Even the most skilled Tutaminis users can have difficulty with lightning. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, he could deflect blaster bolts, he could deflect projectiles. I don't know if he could block lightsabers. He's never shown the ability to do it, but he absolutely cannot deflect lightning with his bare hands. Yoda can, he can't. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. That's cool. I did not know that. So okay, so it's not like every Jedi can just sit there and block the lightsaber like she did, and it's not. It's what very they would difficult. Prefer because it would expend a lot of her energy, but it was something she could do when pressed.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Well, she is. I know she is the descendant of Revan and Bastila, so she should have a decent potential there to be a badass. So
she does. It's just it's so there's so little to it. You can't exactly give concrete answers.
Right. No. That
you can say she's cool, and that's viable, but unless you could back it up with certain facts, which
that's what
they haven't given to us, we can't say anything for sure. Like, for all we know, she could suck. I don't know.
And that's actually one thing I really enjoy about your videos. Sorry, and by the way, everyone, I'm recovering from a cold, so my voice is a bit creaky. What's one thing I really enjoy about your videos is that you don't really speculate unless you have no other choice. I really enjoy that you will dig very, very deep just to try, because I agree that speculation is needed at certain parts, but should be avoided at all costs, especially when going into a debate that is so subjective.
Yeah, definitely. If a character has a style that isn't stated or isn't entirely clear, I like to I look for his movements. I look how he holds his sword. It's the little things, because even the littlest of things can make a big difference. I think your game froze.
No, my game did not freeze, but let me screen share might have frozen. Hang on a second. Skype does that from time to time. So, there we go.
Alright, yeah, now it's good.
Alright, I forgot to get one of my XP boosts anyway, so...
Sorry about that.
No. But yeah,
Yeah, so it's because the littlest of things can make a huge difference, and I try my best because if I'm just going on assumptions, I don't think assumptions are valid unless they're really accurate. Now, unless it's like blatantly obvious, like yes, he uses Zataru, or hey, it's obvious he has powerful telekinetic abilities. It's unless it's obvious though, assumptions just aren't enough to go by, and
right.
it really makes making certain versus videos with certain characters kind of difficult. Like my Revan versus Luke Skywalker video, one of my first versus videos ever made. Revan's style was actually not ever explicitly stated, ever. And I had to look at the way he held his sword. I had to look at the way he used it. I had to look at the game mechanics. I even read the combat manual for the game to see if anything was stated. So it's a really I try my best. I just try my best to get it as close as I possibly can.
Well, if I remember correctly, KOTOR was made probably not before they came up with the lightsaber styles, but definitely before the lightsaber styles were popular knowledge.
Yeah, they weren't. The lightsaber styles weren't really popularized, I should say, until Attack of the Clones came out.
Right.
And KOTOR came out about 10 years ago. So it came out a couple of years before that. So,